Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I think we are waiting on a couple of people to join, so we're going to give 1 or 2 minutes to ensure that everyone is able to log in and join us, and then we're going to kickstart today's webinar.
Should we look to get started, Felicity?
I think we can kick off, Jamie.
Good stuff. So I just want to say a huge thank you for everyone in attendance as of today. Short intros to begin with. So good afternoon. I am Jamie. I'm a business development manager here at LexisNexis Middle East.
And I'm Felicity Murphy, the AI product specialist, also here at Lexis Middle East. So let's start with the question everyone's quietly thinking. If AI can do in minutes what used to take hours, what exactly are we billing for? Or even what are we being billed for?
Exactly, Felicity, because this isn't just about efficiency. It's about expectations. Clients aren't just asking for faster work anymore. They're asking why it still costs the same.
And in a market like the GCC, where relationships, trust, and value are everything, that question becomes even sharper.
So today isn't about whether AI is coming. We know it is. It's about what happens to the business model of law when it does.
Okay, before we kick off, a quick look at today's agenda. So we are joined by a stellar panel today. Each of them is seeing this shift from a completely different angle. So we'll be exploring how legal AI is reshaping client expectations of law firms across the GCC and beyond. And towards the end, we'll briefly touch on how you can get involved in helping to shape the future of Lexis Middle East AI through our Protege Insider program. So Protege is our AI tool. And if you would like to learn more about it, you can scan the barcode you'll see at the bottom of every slide during our presentation. And finally, we're going to close out with a questions and answer session at the end. So please post all your questions in the chat, and we'll be posing those questions to our panel members right at the end of our presentation. So let's meet the panel then, who'll be bringing these perspectives to life today.
And we're very fortunate to have these three gentlemen with us. So, Head of Legal and Board Secretary at WEO Bank, bringing the in-house buyer-side perspective from one of the region's most forward-thinking and looking digital banks, where expectations around cost, visibility, quality, and strategic value are changing fast, and unchanged billing is becoming harder to defend. Next is Ian, managing partner at Harney's, bringing the perspective of a premium international firm, advising on high stakes, cross-border matters, and the important nuance that AI may not simply reduce work, but may shift where the real value sits. And last but not least, my good friend Arjun, principal partner and co-founder at Argentum Law, a modern international boutique firm who brings the perspective of a firm that are already experimenting with AI-enabled scoping, fixed fee designs, and a proactive transparency with clients.
Welcome to everyone on the panel. So before we get into it, we just want to take a quick temperature check across the audience. So AI means very different things to different organizations right now. So we're curious where you all sit. Still early days for you, or is it already changing how you work and deliver value? So just take a second if you can to vote here on the poll. We're just going to give a couple of seconds there for votes.
I'm only disappointed, Felicity. It says hosts and panelists cannot vote, but I'll certainly share my view.
Thanks, Ian. Okay, Hannah, I think we got some responses. Can we end the poll? Okay, fantastic. So we're seeing a lot of people already seeing AI changing how we are delivering work. A huge amount of improving efficiency, but there's still a few who are not seeing any real impact. So that may be that you're not yet convinced or not yet too impressed. So let's see if we can change your minds here on this call today.
Okay, awesome. Interesting take in terms of the initial data. So let's move into the discussion. Now, where we're going to start is the direct implications of AI on the traditional hourly billing model, which has came under scrutiny more recently as traditional arduous legal work becomes more efficient. What should actually change for the client, and how would this then influence the billable model? Gregor, from the client seat, how real is this already? When outside counsel use AI, what feels hardest to defend in the old hourly billing logic?
Good afternoon. Hello, everyone. Great to attend. Yeah, it is very real. It is present. It is here now. It is just every day. This is the question. Why? I think it's more on the if you look at it, the time spent basis is we're really moving away from that, and we're going to look at outcomes and risk reduction. That is it. So that is now also in every in our panel of law firms what we look at. We look at things that are more strategic. Commoditized work. We expect fewer hours, lower unit prices. I mean, that's the whole point, because that's what I do also. Everything I can now see my own team. We have 350,000 customers that will go hopefully much higher, and we have a pretty lean legal function. And now I'm not so concerned in growing my team in that sense. Is why I can deal with anything, actually, even up to 500,000. The number of police and court requests, whatever, litigation, contracts, procurement, it doesn't matter. We have the tech and the understanding and how to scale this and have the same delivery. So it's now also then translated to the law firm, saying we're asking the same questions. I can adjust. How are you adjusting? Yeah. So it is less time spent on process heavy tasks, more fixed pricing, I would say, and then clear explanations also on how AI is making them more efficient, and where the human expertise is still driving the fee, but why? Yeah.
Thanks, Gregor. And just following up from that, are you seeing a real frustration that firms may be using AI, but the client experience and the invoice still often look as though nothing has changed?
Yes, I am. It's a lot of frustration. I've maybe this is also the webinars about. I can also share anecdotes, but it is it's the communication piece as getting update from the law firms on a status. Think of trademark registrations, multiple jurisdictions, or something else, and then I need to go into my email and look at 12 emails before and what counsel told me in March, and then I need to put it all together, unconfuse it. But why am I doing that? Like, where's the update there? And that they're not using it in that sense as well. So I can see them. I think they're using it for drafting and so on, but I don't see that beyond actually as one. I don't see delivery on that. So that's something it's in the communication piece. I'm not so happy. That's what I would say. It's not. They're not catching up on that. So but we can talk about it more. But yeah, that's a key point.
We'll definitely be talking about it more. That's a great response. Arjun, I want to bring you in here. So, because you're one of the few people we've spoken to who's already redesigning parts of the engagement model surrounding this, what are you actually doing differently when it comes to scoping and fee structures?
So, it's completely, AI has completely changed the way in which our lawyers are spending their days and the way they're engaging with the work completely. And the way we're wearing it in front of clients is to be very transparent with them. In fact, even with some in-house teams, we've even said, look, let us introduce you to the tools we're actually working with, where we're actually going in and saying, look, these are the several tools. These are the ones we're experimenting with. This is in the pipeline. And these are the ones that we've vetted. And we're introducing them to these tools as well. And so we're, trying to take the bull by the horns and basically introduce how our lives are changing as essentially external counsel / in-house counsel, and also see how we can kind of communicate this knowledge over to them. And that enables them to then work better with us. For example, they'll know which tools we're using, because life as a lawyer now it feels a little bit like a mechanic in a car shop in a sense, because you have a variety of these tools that you're able to work with, and you need to experiment with these tools constantly in order to learn what they do, because each of these tools do things in slightly different ways, right? And so we found that most of our clients generally don't want to know how the work is getting done. They have a budget. They say, we want this X work done within this Y budget. And we, behind the scenes, essentially are still working within the billable hours. Just the billable hours kind of moved backstage. And now we assess, okay, where are the essential human elements of judgment? Where do we understand our experience comes into play? And how do we use the AI tool within that budget? And then we negotiate that budget with the client that way. And it's kind of a value-based billing perspective. But I think it's really critical now, especially for our more sophisticated clients, to know which tools we're using. And we take the approach of being much more upfront with them about how we can use these tools, what kind of efficiencies we can bring onto the table.
Yeah, it's such an important approach, Arjun. Thank you. And what we often see is that AI doesn't transform outcomes when it's simply added to existing processes. So it's when firms like Argentum, like yours, are rethinking the workflow end to end from scope through pricing and through delivery, I think where it's adding the most value.
Ian, excited to get your take here. So from a premium firm perspective, is that where the market is heading across the board, or is the picture much more uneven than that?
No, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, the first observation I would make is that Gregor's obviously not using the right firm, because if he's got a firm that is, if the advice is disparate, he's having to kind of bundle things together. That's basic law firm delivery anyway. And then you add that they should be using AI tools, and as a bank, I'm sure his sort of panel process, whenever it comes round periodically, is going to be asking that question, because certainly we have been asked that question by multiple banks. We've had to prove what AI tools we're using. That hasn't actually been the most difficult part. That's easy. We can tell them. The more sort of the area that has a greater area of complexity is showing that you, from a regulatory perspective, have the internal policies in place to regulate the use of your AI tools, that your staff are only using internal enterprise-only tools. They understand the risks, and none of the client data is being used. You're not being used as a guinea pig to sort of build generative AI. That kind of level of complexity is what we're getting from our institutional clients, our banks, our global client base, and that has become increasingly sophisticated, because obviously they themselves are going through that process. So in the same way that we are having to be more efficient to meet the changes to the billable hour, our clients are becoming more efficient in the way they deliver data to us, in the way they instruct us, in the way they kind of dip in and out of us, as it were, in a much more different way. And I mean, we initially, and I know we'll talk more about the cost of all this, but I mean, initially, with the adoption of, I'm not going to name them, but the 4 AI tools that we've been using, and of course, we can't wait to be using LexisNexis Protege AI tool. But the ones we have been using, we've really had to document exactly what we're using them for. the acceptable use policies, the compliance of it, the reports to regulators in each of our jurisdictions as to how we're deploying it and how we disclose to clients that we're deploying. So the last thing that you want to do, coming back to the principal statement that we came up with at the beginning, is that no lawyer should be charging for presenting something as an inefficient process when in fact they have the technology to do it efficiently. I mean that would just be grossly unprofessional and unethical. You can't charge a client to type an advice on a typewriter, knowing that you've done it using AI or just more basically on a computer. And I think it's the obligation of all professionals to be within a reasonable standard of what their particular firm can afford and the type of work they're doing, to be adopting enough technology so that they are doing things efficiently. It just isn't acceptable now not to be using AI. And absolutely, it's been a huge process for us over the last 18 months, I guess, because it's far from just moving away from the billable hour for a moment, but looking at from as an owner of a law firm, as the managing partner of our Dubai office, I know that me and the equity partners, we can absolutely see that the initial investment into AI, if you're a multinational law firm, is a large one. And yeah, AI tools that aren't enterprise, that aren't proprietary, and that you've got people using on their phones, that's a very different kind of use case. For us, we've got to make sure that we've got all the right protections in place. And so the initial stages, like the adoption of all technologies, actually comes with enormous cost. And so you have to get past that, though, and then you have to be able so that you can, as quickly as possible, pass on those efficiencies to the client.
Yeah, Ian, look, I'm going to need you to elaborate on that slightly more. Because you've touched on some really, really strong points there. Regulations, having the resources available, which we'll come on to in the next theme. So thank you for that. So we've got a really strong spread there. Client pressure on old billing logic, practical redesign from the firm side, and a premium firm reminder that not all work will move in the same way.
Exactly. And so moving on from pricing, and I think this continues on perfectly from your points there, Ian. From pricing to trust. So the sentiment is that AI can only look to support commercially if the work is being supervised properly and priced fairly. So Gregor, I'm going to start with you again. If AI is to support legal delivery commercially, it must be trusted from a client perspective. What builds that trust for you, and how can firms demonstrate that?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's what Ian and also Arjun mentioned. I would say it just on being transparent on the use cases in the firm. How far is it developed? How much is it integrated, and so on. You have your policies and such. You look at the models and say what works for us. But if you are transparent about that, that will help a lot. And the controls, the compliance piece is key as well. If you thought of that, the data privacy aspect, of course. And then how is the whole, I guess the org model, the team, how has that changed, right? From a time spent basis, which is from a few years ago, to where it is now, about what Arjun said, what we give as judgment, what is critical thinking and so on. So how was that change made, and how did it impact staffing and the team structure and so on? I think that transparency will be very good to have, I would say, yeah.
Great. And then, Gregor, do you think that this becomes part of panel scoring now? So not just do you use AI, but how do you use it? How is it governed? And what is the client or yourself going to get from it?
I think that's a good point. I think at the core, it would be that it needs to match our speed in terms of embracing it and developing and using it for us. I'll give you an example. I mean, this is the non-tech people in the bank, control functions, legal, compliance, risk, and so on. I have my team members. They're able to prompt and design their own procurement system platform for contract management. That's how strong the cloud cohort. And so that's a Saturday afternoon. I mean, maybe I have very good people, but they can develop this and they do a workflow and contract execution, then a dashboard that can go to a CEO and such to inform them about a key contract and the status and all these things. And that's just one thing, just for a few hours of prompting and just thinking of stuff. So whatever comes into our head as a subject matter expert on something, a topic, be it compliance or risk and legal, we can just translate it right away into a solution. And that is something I think I expect from the other side. And also the law firms need to also have that type of, I guess, that speed and efficiency and translation of that, I guess. Yeah. So we'll look at that too. Yeah. Are they, how savvy are they? Yeah. So it's not only an AI policy or an AI charter, and there's an AI committee, and we looked at it, and it's prompting and drafting and so on, but it is beyond that. Yeah.
And I think, Gregor, you know, it's not new to have clients being concerned about being billed on an hourly basis. And in the Middle East in particular, I think there is huge concern about, you know, what clients in GCC countries almost see as a kind of, you know, American sort of Anglo model of billing. And, you know, for us as a law firm, billing, you know, at fixed fee rates for particular types of work, for, you know, whether it's a disclosure exercise or reviewing structured finance documents, or, you know, putting a due diligence package together for an M&A or whatever. You know, we absolutely have been giving fixed fees for, you know, over a decade. I think what clients need to see is how those fixed fees for work that is sort of commoditizable, to create a new word, is then helping them in terms of reducing the cost. So I think we're in this sort of interesting period right now, where on the one hand, even before AI, you know, commoditized work is being, you know, done on very much standard fees. I mean, for example, you know, in the UK, when you buy or sell a property now, there's, you know, no property lawyer is going to try and charge you on an hourly rate. It's very much sort of fixed fee for a conveyancing of a property of, and you know, that model applies to greater commercial work. I think in GCC regions, but the question is now we're at this real kind of inflection point, and I totally agree with you, because there are some firms who are sort of, I think, just using AI at a very low level, you know, to be conducting, you know, classic basic e-discovery or document review, or, you know, using the tool to review high volume due diligence documents and contracts before the purchase by a private equity buyer, or, you know, things like that. But they, you know, we're working on this now to actually create workflows, to create dashboards, to create the ability to understand big data in a graphic way, and to really create time efficiencies there. I think that's a stage that there aren't many law firms who can credibly say they feel confident they're doing that well yet. I mean, it's just a bit too new. And I think for a lot of law firms, because we speak to managing partners from globally, from law firms around the world, and I think, you know, the adoption of AI has felt, you know, absolutely a priority, but there's been some nervousness with, you know, you don't want to be the law firm that's adopted a tool that suddenly, you know, leaks your client's data, or, you know, there are loads of issues like that going on. So I think 2026 will be the year when these processes really get developed, though.
Ian, just out of interest, just touch on that slightly more. Is that the nature of the conversations and a potential shift that you've seen in terms of questionnaires and panel conversations when you're bidding for business?
Well, it's interesting. Not yet. I think it's still at a preliminary stage. It's more about, are you using AI, and tell us about your compliance to do with it. And there's a bit of a difference, because in places like London, New York, the conversations are more detailed, because you just have a larger number of, you know, enormous multinational law firms that are looking at this. But I think in places like the GCC, and certainly here in Hong Kong, it is not a developed or mature conversation yet. And I'm amazed how many law firms, don't yet have that kite mark of quality on their websites to say that they use AI. For us, it's a massive marketing tool, because once we thought about it very carefully, where we went to a lot of providers just to make sure that we were adopting the right technology that is being tested. But in doing that, for us, it wasn't just part of the internal hardware. We were marketing it to the world to tell everyone about it. We thought it was just the greatest thing ever. And so I think that it depends where you are, jurisdictionally. But my experience in the GCC so far has been that it's still at a fairly early level, despite the GCC being so technologically savvy, and I think that's just because of volume and size.
Yeah, that's so important. And what we're seeing is that firms who are using AI in this region, we're seeing the buyers now are asking increasingly practical questions. Is the environment enterprise grade? What are the retention rules? Can administrators control access? And what are our prompts or uploaded documents being used to train models? So specifically really on the security side. And I think we're seeing people or lawyers on the corporate side becoming very, kind of security conscious. And they're able to kind of relay those kind of concerns and questions to us in our conversations with them. So they really now they're expecting kind of sophisticated vendors and firms to be able to answer these kind of questions clearly.
Arjun, I want to get your take here. Sorry, Ian. Let me just move across to Arjun just briefly. So, you said something brilliant in prep, right? You said that you would be the first person to tell the client where AI is being used, and you've even walked clients through the tools you use, which Ian touched upon there in terms of having that available and that visibility, right?
Yeah.
Why would you say that's such an advantage in your circumstance?
Look, I mean, I think, we're clearly in a world where, we're already acting like cyborg lawyers, and there's a lot of trust from the client on the lawyer on this very personal relationship with their advisor about, what requires their ears and their eyeballs on paper versus what we can use with the machine, what we can delegate to the machine, right? And in that trusted relationship with the client, and this is where it's intensely personal. It's not just about what the law firm is deciding from a policy perspective, but the lawyer to client advisory relationship. That in that relationship, the lawyer is being tasked with giving the best advice to the client and doing it in a cost-effective way, and knowing the client's emotional tenor, their red lines, all of their objectives, but also in line with what exists as enterprise-grade security tools, what AI tools exist that are actually compliant and safely protecting clients' information, right? So we want to get ahead of this. And I would rather the clients are fully empowered upfront. So they know, for example, in the client activity reports, when we identify the work that we've done, which tools we're using, why did we use that tool? Over time, it's going to get even better. The more communication we have with our clients and the more that they know about the way in which we're using tools, that makes us better advisors. So ultimately, look, I mean, I think we're in a situation where human attention is clearly finite, right? But we have these superpowers, and I think we're in this kind of brave new world right now. It's kind of like in those superhero movies, when the young kid realizes he has superpowers, and all of a sudden he's shooting off all kinds of things in the room. And we need a safe space to do that within law firms, and that's why every law firm should have an AI task force or a team that's safely testing out the tools, and then safely bringing them into the client's attention, introducing the client to them, and us experimenting with what they call the jagged edge of these tools, really pushing these tools to the max, right? Really testing them. And then, coming back and letting clients know, hey, this is the tool that we used and this is what it's good at. Just like as I said, like a mechanic in a car shop, knowing what their tools do, we need to be able to then translate to the clients what these tools actually do. And they're changing so fast, which is why clients are delegating the responsibility of being up to date on legal tech knowledge, on what the AIs can do. Because ultimately, what are these machines? These machines are basically predictive text machines. They don't know the law, but the clients are using us for that human judgment, for that understanding about when to use these tools and how to use them.
And actually, Arjun, Sorry.
Sorry, go ahead, Ian. Yeah.
I was just going to jump in with just add what Arjun says there. I mean, the clients have become so sophisticated, and we represent a lot of Chinese tech companies, and in fact we're doing a dispute to do with it with a Chinese AI company, and they are incredible, and they teach us a lot how in terms of how they are using AI within their own businesses, and you see the speed they can do things. But on the other hand, we have clients that have come to us to say, oh, we put the witness statement that you produced, Ian, we put the statement of claim that you produced, we just put it into Gemini just to check if it was a good case, and you drafted it well, and it says we're going to win the case. So, please file the lawsuit. Like, you've done what? You put all your private information into Gemini? And it's just this sort of there's a real knowledge delta with the clients here. So you've got to be so careful.
Yeah,
So
for
true.
sure.
So true.
We're seeing customers who have enterprise access to ChatGPT, for example, believing that that means it's 100% secure and kept within their own tech stack. So yeah, I think
Wow.
it's really becoming a risk. If you're like, LexisNexis, we invest such a huge amount of money in security because it's just paramount. Without that, the AI, everything comes after that. So I guess to wrap up this topic, the opportunity here is that transparency of AI isn't just, an opportunity in itself. It's becoming a real differentiator for law firms.
Mhm.
So onto a colorful topic here. Jamie, we've now that we've established traditional frameworks, implications, and trust, we're going to witness the true value shift. So, Gregor, back to you. If drafting and process work becomes faster, where does premium legal value proposition now sit?
Yeah, it's also a fair point. It's just that drafting, issue spotting, summarizing. It's all AI now. So that is there's no payment or premium there anymore. I think what John also said, it's the judgment piece, the critical thinking that remains. I mean, that's what we are willing to pay premium for. That's the scarce commodity, I would say, and that's about asking the right questions, right, in a very messy situation. Unconfuse it quickly, and then just get to the bottom of right to the point of it. And then what remains is maybe anticipating also regulatory changes, what's ahead, new angles, and that don't surface right away from a simple AI prompt, I would say. So that is something I think that's key. Lawyers, I think what we would pay premium is for lawyers that will stand behind their recommendation. So that's something, just get us like one pager, where is it gonna go, left or right? Something I can actually present to the board and saying that this is it, this is the recommendation, I own this. This is and not 40 pages of assumptions and so on as well. So that accountability, knowing the right context, the strategy is there, the critical thinking is shown, like just a real strategic advisor next to you as well. That is where we can see that is where the premium is still left, and which we're willing to pay and appreciate. Yeah.
Of course, of course. And Ian, actually, one of the strongest points you made in our prep was how in many big professional environments, the process itself has overtaken critical thinking. So I guess is the real opportunity with AI, not just to make the process cheaper, but to give lawyers back the time to think more clearly and add more value.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is a kind of quiet crisis affecting big law. The systems, the processes, the normal steps that one takes to conduct a legal exercise, whether it be an M&A deal, an acquisition, a listing, or a piece of litigation. They all have reasonably known steps that create processes that have become incredibly over-engineered and overburdened with too much process, and that allows people to, young lawyers to actually hide in big law firms, and they may not actually be that technically smart at giving direct legal answers to clients, but they're just producing a volume of work that kind of keeps the big law machine going. And I think all law firms are conscious of this now. And just, we want to be producing work that isn't a long document with we would call what you call Grego providers. We call them, a Weasley lawyer's answer to everything. We actually just want to a client has paid us to advise them. Tell them what they're supposed to do. Don't tell them what they already know, which is there are a range of options from yes to no. That's not worth paying for. And I think that's a conundrum that doesn't necessarily come about just because of AI, by the way. I think it comes about because of, the ability of just having a computer that allows you to create an enormous volume of sort of alleged work product without actually answering the why or the should we, or what is your actual recommendation, yes or no. And I think AI will make that monumentally worse because and we can already see it. AI creates so many documents, such a volume of work that you really have to make sure that you're using AI carefully, sort of sift through that, and you're not just producing documents for the sake of producing documents, and so it's sort of a pet peeve of mine, saying to our associates, you've got to be more commercial. That the client doesn't need all this stuff. They just want your green light with kind of a reasonable narrative as to what that risk calculus is. And I think we've lost that as lawyers as we lose the face-to-face communications. We have the ability to produce documents, the verbiage. I mean, we're drowning in verbiage in every corner of our lives, and that isn't just AI. It'll become a lot worse because of AI.
No, thank you, Ian. And look, I'm going to move across to Arjun because you gave a very practical version of this, and Ian, that was a point well made there. So I want to build upon that. Arjun, you said that AI doesn't just save time; it gives lawyers the time to package advice better, explain risk better, and communicate it in language the business can actually use. Is that how firms make judgment more visible?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the realities with lawyers is we're constantly busy. There's just too much work, frankly. And every single lawyer is pressed for time. And, in the pre-AI age, we used to get to the point where we were never really ever fully happy with the work that we sent out. We have billing constraints, we have time constraints, we have a number of different client responsibilities that we have to balance. And, we're in an age now with these superpowers, like I mentioned before, these things that are now allowing us to, spread and amplify our abilities. And, a very good, example of process workflow was, attending a 9 a.m., coffee session with a client, being able to record the session on an AI note taker, an enterprise grade security note taker, I should add, but keeping that recorded, moving that into one of the enterprise grade legal tech tools, drafting a term sheet, moving by 11 a.m. to a junior associate who can review that document, and then push it out to the client. By 3 p.m., it's in the counterparty's inbox, and then they send it back with a markup, and then we immediately, at the speed of business, are able to generate an ordered by materiality risk of red flags for the CEO, with the proviso that this has been AI reviewed, right? We will do our own human review at 5 p.m. But here you go, gut check. While you go into your 5 p.m. meeting with a counterparty, you at least have a sense of the red flags. Now, again, all of this with the transparency that we are using an AI to move at the speed of lightning, essentially, but letting them know that there is a safeguard here that the human lawyer is reviewing and always at the there by the side of that tool. So the idea here is that we're taking complex concepts, we're able to wrap them properly in a way that they have high impact with our client, and to ensure, for example, that he can review it on his handheld while he's in a meeting. So we're navigating around the realities of business. We're navigating around the realities of speed for the key decision makers for clients. So the idea here is that AI is going to enable us to distill the essence of our advice in a better way, in a way that lands its impact faster, and allows us to experiment with legal design find different ways of communicating these concepts.
Yeah, and look, all of the above, right, in terms of the sentiments that have been shared, feel very relevant to something that we're seeing on the product side too here at LexisNexis. So the better legal AI tools like Process are not just trying to generate text, they're trying to remove low value friction so the lawyer can spend more time on judgment, strategy, and where the work really matters. So thank you, gents, for that. We're going to move into the next theme now. And we're on to another poll. So are we all still engaged? I hope so. You can see the nature of the poll here. We've talked a lot about efficiency in the previous one. So I just want you to work through that question. So as AI makes legal work more efficient, what matters most to you when working with external counsel? So we'll give you 30 seconds to submit your answers.
Okay, Hannah, I guess we've probably had enough time with the poll there. Let's see what the results are.
Oh, a fair split, just to make it more complex in terms of the topic.
But really, the big standout one there is the expectation of better commercial and strategic advice. So that'll be music to Arjun and Ian's ears. It's not all about cost. Okay, so moving on to our next slide. I think Jamie, over to you.
Yeah, good stuff. So this was touched upon, Arjun. We referenced this in terms of human insight, oversight, and the human heart. Are we right? So we understand the power of AI. Yet it isn't as simple as automating all legal activity. Arjun, one of the strongest region-specific points you made in prep was that many of the strongest tools are still heavily trained on US and UK styled material, which creates real limitations in GCC work. How important is human oversight in this region specifically?
Yeah, I mean it's even more pronounced. I mean, the best sort of the mainstream legal tech and AI tools are all trained on US and UK training data, pre-training data. So it behooves us as GCC practitioners to really watch over the results when we put stuff through these tools, frankly. That's also compounded by the fact that, even these tools, they have a 17 to 20% hallucination rate. These are the top tier tools, yet still hallucination risks exist. So beyond the hallucination risk, we have this additional point about the pre-training data being, largely trained on US, UK information. And it's important for us, right? Because we're sitting in a region which is quite nuanced. And here in the UAE, for example, the onshore interaction with the DIFC and ADGM, the civil law, common law, just distinctions. You've got, the aspect of practice and the way in which the local courts deal with certain issues in a very specific way that isn't really written down anywhere. So there's a lot of caution that needs to be taken with using, I would say, these tools from a GCC context.
Good. No, that's brilliant, and I think that's where the strong local judgment becomes a genuine differentiator at that point. So the ability to spot where the tool is missing UAE or GCC nuance. So Felicity, do you want to move into Ian's question?
With Ian, yeah. So from your side, is that also why practice areas remain more resistant to commoditization? Because the more uncertainty and nuance there is, the more human judgment still becomes the premium.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I was saying that, I was really talking about litigation, because that's what I do, and I've litigated for many of the world's largest Chinese tech companies and taken them private off NASDAQ. I've acted for some of the largest ultra high net worth families in the world. And there is, and it's well known amongst commercial litigators, there is definitely a kind of tactical sense, a kind of intuitive uh, methodology to litigating that comes from experience. Now, I don't for a moment say that AI can't be taught to do that, but part of the job is being able to communicate that experience and intuition to your clients. And very often for us, our clients are enormously busy, senior, wealthy people, not that the wealth bit matters much, and they don't read anything. And so sending them large volumes of documents when they haven't read the short contracts by which they invested billions of dollars to begin with. So they're never going to read a lengthy advice from me. And fundamentally, every day of my practice, I have very wealthy individuals saying, "Well, put all that to one side here, and just tell me, no papers, just
Yeah.
how is this going to work? How is this piece of litigation going to work?" And in the GCC countries, just as it has been in China, they really, really want to build up a trust and rapport with you, and that is not something that doesn't matter if it's AI. No technology is going to give you that sort of sense of I wish to trust this person to be my sort of homme d'affaires, my sort of trusted person to guide me through this particular conflicts that I want managed. And then, of course, for ultra high net worth individuals, there's a absolute paranoia about their data. And they don't want to be committing things in writing. They want to do things at face-to-face meetings. Now, I'm not saying that that will be more important than AI, and that for some people, they will never use technology. Not at all. But it's just a factor in litigation of the type I do anyway, that I think you have to continue to bear in mind. And almost with AI is able to do so much, but and it's learning, but it can't yet, although it's learning, effectively give that EQ, those communication skills, delivering truly to someone that they have just lost, an injunction, or they've just lost a claim and we're going to have to appeal. Of course, AI can even put in some nice language for you, but it's incumbent upon you to deliver bad news to a client and communicate that effectively. It's incumbent on you to protect your client from, disastrous decision making and risk taking, which sometimes does require a sort of understanding of what is going to resonate best with a particular client's personality. So it's a sliver of hope for those of us who still think that there are clients out there who don't just want AI to do all their work. But I don't want to exaggerate that and say that therefore AI is not going to be used. Not at all. It's just a point to continue to bear in mind. And we talk about it all the time. I mean, our big concern is how are we going to be teaching, our present young associates who hopefully one day will be global equity partners, how are we teaching them all the skills that we had to pick up the slow way if actually, they are doing it with AI? And, we feel very much that our senior partners can absolutely stress test rigorously the answers they are giving us to make sure that we are protecting against hallucinations. We're not convinced that a lot of our junior lawyers can do that, and no law firm is, if they're being honest. So how do you develop that next generation if they are so dependent on AI? And it's actually a social issue too. And I noticed that, Jamie Dimon mentioned this the other day. You don't want a situation where the adoption of AI is kind of just, it falls off a cliff in terms of employment of human beings, over a weekend becomes almost unnecessary for your particular business. That isn't going to be good. It will drive a global recession. That isn't going to be good socially and both selfishly, economically for your own business. So we do need a way to kind of manage how AI manages out human processes. And we need those humans to be, having replacement occupations. And, as we've developed earlier technologies, whether it was when we first got LexisNexis or when we first got a computer, I mean, people then develop different skills for a greater volume of work. So I think there's an ethical side to all of this as well, actually.
But I think it's a really good. It's probably a whole other conversation around will the junior lawyers now, without doing the drudge work, are they going to gain the knowledge to be those trusted advisors? So just in the interest of time, Jamie, do you want to go on to Gregor there? Thanks,
Yeah,
Ian.
I know that you were going to come in there at the midway point. It'd just be good to get your take in terms of how you see this topic. The part of what you're paying for, so validation, supervision, and accountable judgment, and not just fast output. So do you just want to touch upon this topic?
Yeah, I mean, I just look at myself. I am accountable for legal risk management. I sit in the second line of defense of the bank. It's a control function. I own the legal risk. I'm accountable, and I can use all the AI I want. At the end of the day, it's my head. If something is wrong, and I expect, the law firms are my extension in that sense also. So ultimately, I want to see human accountability, right, for a final advice given to me, and I want the name on there, some subject matter experts, some senior saying yes, that's good to go. I think that remains. That is key. You can never blame the AI. It's not a person, so it's us here that's accountable, and so same for the law firms. And on the other side, also on the what you mentioned, also on they have guardrails implemented and so on. There's governance right around the use of AI. I can see also indeed areas which are not appropriate or eligible for AI, I guess, toward to AI use in the law firm. So there can be employment matters, litigation, something sensitive as well, sanctions related, regulatory, I guess some, depending on financial institutions and others as well, where there's a risk of fines or something else. And these are, I guess, off-limit areas. And I expect also the law firm then to communicate saying, this is how we approach it, this we'll put into AI support, and this one is segregated. This is special, right? And so on. So it's a different department, I would say. I think that's it. So, and there's always this I'm actually curious also for Ian and Arjun, how much time they spend on validating actually the work done by AI, right? Because there's drafting involved in SPA. Is that's still lengthy, I must say. We can counter this question, but that's something also. You still spend time correcting and looking and say, does this make sense? It's a clause by clause review still, right, Ian?
I think we're, still trying to work it out, actually, Gregor. I don't want to pretend I have all the answers. And I think as we've been adopting it, we're feeling more comfortable that, our enterprise environment, is putting together what we expect it to put together. But we're very much still learning,
Yeah, I would say from our perspective, we actually did for one M&A mandate for a client, we actually essentially did a dry run of if we did the M&A mandate manually versus with the help of an AI tool for the diligence. And this was a very, very quick deal, a deal that had to happen, within a 30-day period. It needed to move at an accelerated pace. It was cross-border, involving two very, very complicated jurisdictions. And ultimately, when we came out and looked at it with certain estimates, for example, a 2,500-page data room, et cetera, and we, just sort of got it all in a calculator. Ultimately, the AI saved about 25% in terms of fees. It wasn't a huge amount because ultimately every single transaction document needs to be reviewed by human eyeballs on paper is required. And from the only savings that were really met were really at the due diligence phase. And when you're using these very, very, and I would say more advanced and specialized M&A due diligence tools that are stress tested and they have safeguards and they have, contingencies in case they miss it the first round. So you have to kind of build all of that in. And these are expensive tools, actually. So they might move the speed of the transaction up into a 30-day timeline, what would have taken 60 days, but it still requires human eyeballs on paper. And so I would say around 25 to 30% is kind of our estimate on savings.
Okay, good. So we've got 5 minutes left, and I've got plenty of questions to work through. So,
okay.
Felicity, do you want to work through the slides because it's been that much of a topic is that we've slightly overrun in terms of.
It is. So Jamie, let me jump in here for 2 seconds because I just want to, I know this is a bit of a plug, but we are bringing Protege to the Middle East. So that means that our legal AI tool is going to be sitting directly on top of Lexis authoritative content for AI. So that's just an information there. So what we have here is a poll. Hannah, I think you can take this down because I think we're out of time for this poll. If we want to just go through the Protege webinar. Oh, sorry, we have the poll up here. I'm going to go straight to the Protege slide. So this is the big announcement we have. We know that AI is only as good as the legal content that it's the grounding source material. So we're bringing you Protege Middle East, but not only that, we are opening up an insider program. So you can join it by scanning the barcode that's on the screen here. And it means that you'll be among the first to experience the future of legal work with our AI. So you'll have exclusive webinars, thought leadership, and early access to what's next. And we need subject matter experts. So if you'd like to sign up to that to evaluate our AI platform, it'll be the first AI platform in the region with a dedicated Middle East authoritative content library. So all of our responses will be grounded in LexisNexis content. So you can register here, but we'll also be sending out more details of that after this session. So Jamie, I think we're going to jump to some questions and answers now.
Questions first and then answers from the panel. Yeah, let's do that. So I'm going to have to select. So we're going to go for 2, gents. We're going to have to be snappy because we've got 4 minutes. So this is a really good question. Hi. Would it be practical or advisable to include in the client-lawyer engagement agreement a confidentiality provision prohibiting the sharing of client data and confidential information or documents on AI platforms? Does anyone want to take the lead with that one?
Yeah, I don't mind doing that, and the answer is yes, absolutely. But there's a lot more to it than that. I'm just looking at our Harney's AI acceptable use policy, which is then hardwired into our engagement letter as a link. You need client confidentiality assurances, human oversight assurances, transparency assurances, accountability assurances, security and data governance assurances, compliance and ethics. And then there are some particular assurances needed for compliance with court rules. Then you need all of that policy incorporated into your letter of engagement. And what we've had with our big clients, just having to update our T's and C's and then rolling that out to clients. Yeah, it's absolutely hugely important and great question. Thanks for bringing it to everyone's attention.
I can add to that also. It's not only in the contract that's the starting point, the beginning, the due diligence on the law firm as a vendor, but it's ongoing due diligence. So in this case, with AI is involved, and the use is changing a bit with the law firms, you'll have a CISO involved on our side also, an audit and so on as well. It will be more enhanced, I would say, than a normal customer versus law firm relationship. That's how I see it also. So we treat it as more as a high-risk vendor. Yeah.
Time for one more, Flick, or should we look to wrap?
Yeah, I think we can maybe get one more in, and then we'll wrap up. We've 1 minute and 20 seconds left.
Arjun, notoriously right is that in terms of Arjun, this is going to resonate in terms of external counsel for internal teams. So how can in-house counsel or business support services serve to aid client-facing lawyers? For example, to use a heuristic, is knowledge management the new artificial intelligence?
Is knowledge management the new? Interesting. Actually, one of the key things we're looking to do is actually linking our clients' documents directly into our system, so that we have a one dashboard essentially with which we're working with clients, and all of their templates being on there, their sales team, the operations team, everyone working off the same document, because a lot of time gets lost in confusion around what to use, when to use it, where the guidance on using certain documents. So I'd say the biggest need of the hour is really a coordinated function or coordinated dashboard between the legal team, the outsourced legal team, internal legal team, and the team within, of course, sales and operations.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I think that's all we actually have time for today. So a massive thank you to our panel. You've been absolutely amazing, and I hope everyone who tuned in really enjoyed today. We will be doing more webinars, and we hope to see you there. And thank you again, everyone. Have an absolutely great day.
Thank you.
Thank
Take care,
you. Great
all.
panel.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Bye,
thank
guys.
you.
Bye.